Hello, broadcast. Now you're there. You weren't there for a second. Where were you?
I was always here, Tom.
You've always been here, Roger. All right, let's make sure that
This
works.
is Chris Christensen from
Well, hi, Chris. Hold on. We're not ready for you yet.
Oops, sorry.
And I need to give you control.
It's last week tonight with John Oliver.
Okay. Hiya, Silverblade. Okay. I gave out a beta read of a upcoming novel of mine on my writer's Patreon, patreon.com/acedetect. So if you are subscribed there and you support at the beta reader level, be sure to check that out. Just a reminder. Also might be posting some potential book cover designs as well. Shall we then?
Let's do it.
I'm hiding.
Do it. Go hide. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, August 7th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, alongside Veronica Belmont, who is the greatest podcaster of all time.
That was nice.
Just trying to cheer you up. It's a Monday. We need to get some energy going in here. Hey, we have a diverse amount of topics on today's show. We're going to talk a little bit about Marcus Hutchins, because you interviewed him for IRL, and we've got some updates with his situation. He's Malware Tech, the guy that was arrested last week on suspicion of breaking the law regarding some code. But we also have high-tech breast pumps and AI sleep research.
Seems like a special kind of day.
It does, doesn't it? Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Amazon has relisted Blue smartphones, calling security concerns a, quote, false alarm. Blue admitted that last year it discovered third-party software it used was collecting unauthorized data, but said it has stopped using that software for its over-the-air updates. So it's all good. You can buy your Blue smartphones again.
I don't even know what those are.
They're smartphones. They're made by a company called Blue that doesn't use an E in its name.
Okay. And it's also not microphones.
No, they're not the Blue microphones. These are smartphones. And they're like, they're mid-range smartphones.
Got it. Apple Insider obtained a note to Apple investors indicating Apple has canceled plans to embed a fingerprint sensor in the screen of the next iPhone. It is unclear what biometrics will be included, but leaked HomePod code indicated some kind of facial recognition.
Man, that leaked HomePod code has just been a goldmine for people.
I was kind of excited about the fingerprint, but if it's just going to recognize my face anyway and log me in, I guess I don't really need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will still be Touch ID. I can't imagine they get rid of it. But yeah, it's just not going to be that slick,
no button situation. Yeah.
Here's some more top stories. Intel has finalized the specs of its consumer-level Basin Falls Core i9-7980XE processor. Now, before you fall asleep, this thing has 18 cores. 18 cores for a consumer-level CPU. 2.6 gigahertz clock speed. Can turbo boost, depending on if your Turbo Boost 3.0 compatible, up to 4.4 gigahertz. Has a 24.75 megabyte L3 cache. 165 watts of thermal design power for $1,999. Only $19.99, shipping September 25th. There's also a 14-core version shipping on September 25th. 12-core version arrives a little earlier, August 28th. It's the most cores Intel has ever put in a desktop CPU. Intel decided to ship this monster after seeing surprisingly good sales of its 10-core Broadwell E CPU. And the move is pretty interesting in light of the conventional wisdom out there that, we just need lightly powered mobile devices. Intel is finding that there is still a thriving community of enthusiasts and prosumers and power users. They talk a lot about gamers and streamers who need these big machines.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running something like a TriCaster, or you've got if you're doing tons of Twitch streams and gaming at the same time, I mean, this is still important to a lot of people. And I mean, I don't need this many cores, but my gaming PC at home is relatively souped up, and I still use it. That's a huge market out there.
And they've done a lot to make sure that one core can get the maximum speed, even if not all of the cores can do that. So that, one of the knocks on multi-core systems is they were only as fast as the slowest core. That's not true anymore. And like I've always said, there will always be specialty reasons for desktop PCs, and we can't predict what all those specialty reasons are. I mean, the fact that Twitch came along, became a moneymaker for people that rely on low latency, high resolution video games while streaming. That means a pretty powerful machine.
Exactly. Samsung will release the Galaxy S8 Active on Friday, August 11th. Pre-orders start through AT&T on Tuesday, August 8th for $28 a month. The S8 Active comes in gray and gold and has a larger, 4,000 milliamp battery, as well as dust resistance, water resistance, and 5 feet of water for 30 minutes, and shatter resistant for drops up to 5 feet on a flat surface.
Yeah. So this is the one for Patrick Norton. And people like him who are very put their phones through their paces, and that's a lot of people out there.
Sorry, I'm sick, so I sound like terrible.
I'm so sorry you're sick.
I keep having to mute myself to cough, so if that's why I don't answer right away, that's why it's happening.
But are you hard on smartphones?
Am I? I'm not really. I've never broken a smartphone before.
I have doused a smartphone in water. So I could have used this in that situation. I was actually talking to Patrick Norton's son at a pool and just sat
I was
in the
there
water.
that day.
Yes,
You jumped into the pool. Yeah.
I was just sitting on the edge even. I didn't even jump all the way in. It was less than 5 feet of water, so I would have been saved if I had.
The only time I ever did that to my phone, I lost it at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, so it was just gone.
So it was gone.
It was gone. Mm-hmm. Netflix acquired Millarworld, an independent comic publishing company founded by Mark and Lucy Millar, creators of Kick-Ass and Kingsman. Those have both been made into big movies, so you can guess why Netflix is interested in this company. Mark Millar was also behind the comic series Old Man Logan, which was an inspiration for the movie Logan, and Netflix really wants to bring more of Millar's work to the screen. It's the first major acquisition for Netflix.
Yeah, and this is also kind of I was reading another post where this was kind of a big, snub at Marvel, or a big fine, we don't need you to Marvel, or whatever it is, something to Marvel.
Really? Do you think it is though? I mean,
I don't
think they
know.
want to cancel their deal with Marvel. They just want more of the same.
Yeah, and I think that's fair and that's cool. And plus, if those things do get turned into movies, they'll get a little extra action out of that too.
Well, that's the thing. Netflix's theory is let's put a lot of things out there, because even if somebody doesn't like this one version of the thing, they might like the other. They're doing a ton of anime now too, but that doesn't mean they're canceling their acquisition deals for anime. So I would look at this as doubling down, saying Marvel works so well. For the people who out there who don't love the Marvel stuff, we need to find some other comic book stuff for them.
Do you mind if I interject?
Yeah, Roger Chang jumping in. What's up?
So I think this is part of it of hedging their bets, because they want to bring in, and I've always said this about Marvel when Disney bought them, what they were buying was a huge back catalog of stories that they could eventually turn into either a TV show, a series, web series, a movie, or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And this is very similar, although in some ways, in the same way that Sony packaged a deal with Valiant Comics to basically bring their universe up. Everyone wants to have that control, right? And so if you're doing a deal, even with Marvel, that might have the most compelling stories, you're still got to work something out. So you might not have as much freedom in either distribution or scope, right? Like, hey, I want to do an Avengers Netflix only. It's like, well, no, that's, Marvel.
Well, and a good example of that is Netflix can't allow the Marvel shows to be downloaded for offline viewing because of the deal with Marvel.
And so this would be a perfect thing. Like, hey, if we can get enough compelling content out there that is of a similar genre, maybe we hedge our bets, but we can also maybe have better negotiating terms the next time this contract is up with Marvel.
Did Mark Millar do Superman Red Sun? That's what Silva42 says in the chat room.
If he did, that was a really awesome Elseworld book. And just a side note, that's basically what if Superman landed in the Ukraine instead of Kansas and grew up in the Soviet Union.
Oh,
must read.
Yeah,
all right.
Writer Mark Millar. All right.
Very cool. Moving on to something completely different. Breastfeeding babies started coming back in fashion in the US in 2000, apparently, but breast pumps are loud, complicated, and inconvenient. TechCrunch has an article on innovation finally coming to the 1980s era technology. Naya Health, founded by Janica Alvarez, uses water instead of air to create compression based on a technique used in cataract surgery. The $999 Naya pump is supposedly quieter, more efficient, and more comfortable. Willow makes a pump that can fit into a bra and has no wires or tubes, and CEO Naomi Kelman claims it's quiet enough to do a conference call without muting. There's no price or release date for the Willow pump yet, and older pump companies are innovating as well. I don't know how to say these names. Lansano and Medela both use Bluetooth to help track sessions on an app with pumps that range from $200 to $400.
Now, these things are not cheap, but if they, allow you to walk around instead of having to close the door and sit, they allow you to be on a conference call. I mean, I think any woman who I've ever talked to who's had to use these has complained about them. This could be huge.
I mean, I've never had kids, but like all my girlfriends that have kids, all they do is complain about breast pumps because like the little pieces become, yes, Roger, you want to talk about breast pumps?
I'm just saying, my wife would have loved one of these when she was still working and our daughter was only a few months old. Like, it's not just the setting up, which is incredibly, involved, but like you're just kind of stuck in one place, right? It's like being wired to something, right? Like a VR headset. So the ability to physically move out of your chair somewhere else is huge because now you're just not stuck in a seat for like 30 minutes, an hour, depending.
Well, there's little travel pump ones too that are just, hand pumps, but those take forever.
Yeah. And they're external still. I remember when Molly
they're all external.
Well, no, apparently this one from Willow isn't.
What does that mean?
It's just it fits in your bra.
Yeah.
No, okay. Well, that's we're talking about different kinds of external. Yes.
Well, true, right? No, they're not internal to your body. I just mean like outside of your clothes. That's. I was going to say, I remember when Molly had her kid and realizing like, oh, you can't put that off. You have to go do it. If you're otherwise, it can lead to complications and eventually you stop. Yeah. So I think it's, we talk about health devices and gadget innovation and health devices quite a bit. But this is an area that's been fairly overlooked. There hasn't been a lot of progress in that area for a long time.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this until one of my girlfriends had a baby last year, and we went on a trip together, and she had to keep pumping throughout the whole trip because the baby was at home with her father, and it was like we lost one of the pieces, so we had to go to Babies R Us, and then the thing was like $400.
Yeah.
And like it was such a nightmare.
Well, that's that complexity that a lot of these companies are trying to solve. Like make something that's really easy to use instead of having all these tubes and wires and everything.
Right.
Researchers at MIT have developed an AI that analyzes radio signals to measure sleep stages. So it's kind of like radar. It just bounces these radio signals off of you, or basically it's like Wi-Fi too. It broadcasts the radio, but then it receives the radio back and can measure that. The key is training a deep neural network to recognize respiration and pulse among all of the other irrelevant information like, bouncing off your lamp or your window or your wall. In a test of 25 healthy volunteers, the new technique was found to be 80% accurate. That's comparable to an EEG, which requires, electrodes and wires monitored by human specialists. This could mean that sleep studies would no longer be restricted to lab situations where you have to have those electrodes attached. Electrical engineering and computer science professor Dina Katabi led the study, which she and her co-presenters will present at the International Conference on Machine Learning on August 9th. They've done a lot of work with this too, of bouncing off radio signals to do things externally like measure gait, the way you walk, and they want to advance this into being a diagnostic tool for Parkinson's. So there's all kinds of applications for it.
Very cool.
And it's all about the AI. It's the things that you couldn't do if you didn't have the AI to sort through the signals, because it's way too complicated for humans to recognize. But it's also difficult. It has been difficult for even a computer to do it until you got these deep neural networks to look through it all.
Exactly.
And speaking of complicated stuff, have you ever done any of those sleep studies? I also have not done them. Have you ever done a sleep study? You have?
Yeah.
I hear it's a pain.
Yeah, I mean, both times was very annoying. One time I had to do it at a hotel room that was set up for the research place where they did all the things all over my head. And then the next time I did it, it was at home, and it was like a headband you had to wear and stick to your forehead.
Yeah,
they
that's
had to
comfy.
wear for the whole night, and it was very uncomfortable.
Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com, which you can get in the Anchor app as a podcast on Google Home, thanks to Anchor, and now on the Amazon Echo in the US and the UK. We launched on the UK version of the Amazon Echo Skills Store this weekend. It's dailytechheadlines.com. Thank you. And now, let's get into what's up with Marcus Hutchins. If you've been listening to the show, you know that he was arrested at the Las Vegas airport, 6 counts in an indictment of himself and a redacted co-defendant who are accused of creating and distributing malware called the Kronos banking Trojan. They had an arraignment, and a prosecutor told Las Vegas District Judge Nancy Cope that Marcus Hutchins told police he created the code that Harvest Bank details and indicated he sold it for Bitcoins. Prosecutor Dan Cowig called Hutchins a danger to the public and recommended denying him bail, but the judge disagreed. Said it was a couple of years ago. He doesn't seem to be a flight risk. He doesn't seem to be dangerous. Let's release him on $30,000 bail. He is required to stay off the internet, will be monitored by GPS, and he is only allowed to reside in Clark County, Nevada, or in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, which is where he will appear in court on Tuesday. Apparently, he spent the weekend in jail, though, because they couldn't get the bail money together quick enough to meet the Friday deadline. But supposedly he is out today. BBC also said that security researcher and hacker Tara Wheeler and Fidus Security's Andrew Mabbitt have set up a funding page to help his defense. He was caught as part of a sting operation that was conducted to buy code from his co-defendant. Other evidence that will be submitted in the trial are chat logs where Hutchins complains about the money he received from the sale, allegedly. Hutchins' lawyer Adrian Lobo says Hutchins is not the author of the Kronos Trojan and will plead not guilty. Now, that brings you up to date on his story, but we wanted to add to this the fact that he was your recent guest on the IRL podcast, and I know you talked to him, you recorded this interview a while back, long before any of the events of last week, but granted, I'm not expecting you to say, I could tell he was shifty or he's definitely innocent or anything like that. But, you probably formed some impressions of the guy talking to him, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is, like you said, totally my opinion, completely subjective. I have no inside information whatsoever, but I have an extremely difficult time believing that he did anything malicious. I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. And if it turns out to be not the case, I will be beyond shocked. But I legitimately believe that he only has the best intentions. And if he did do something, I mean, he's 23 years old. He's a kid.
And this would have been when he was 21. This would have been a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And I know that's not an excuse, but as part of the research that he does, he has to obtain code samples from a lot of this malware. And I'm wondering if some of these wires got crossed in some way that looked as though he was involved in a way that he wasn't necessarily involved, or maybe perhaps he tweeted about the Kronos malware back in 2015, I believe, asking for code samples. And I just have a very hard time thinking that if someone is doing something outright maliciously, that they would be so publicly obvious about their involvement by doing something like tweeting publicly about it. So I don't know. I'm very confused. I'm very upset. I think he's a very, very sweet, nice kid. And this is his passion. This is his life. He spends all of his free time, all of his professional time figuring out ways to get around malware and to say, protect people from it. And that's not an easy job. And, the WannaCry situation could have gone south extremely quickly for a great number of companies, organizations, and people. And he was able to stop it. Yeah, in part, it was somewhat accidental, but at the same time, he still did figure out a way to to register the domain that ultimately ended up being the kill switch for the malware. So I don't know. It just seems to me like this is part of the issue that comes with being a security researcher, of being a white hat hacker, of figuring out and solving the huge problem around internet security and malware, because you have to dip your toes in some pretty unsavory stuff and communicate potentially with people who don't have the best interests of the internet at large at heart. And I don't know what the deal is with these chat logs. I don't know what the deal is with this Bitcoin conversation. It hasn't come to light publicly yet, so we can't really make any judgments on that. But I deeply believe that this is some kind of misunderstanding, I hope. And if I'm wrong, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, and you're not alone in that opinion. I have seen countless number of other security researchers who work with him saying pretty much the same thing that you're saying, which is this is a guy who's really dedicated to fighting malware. And I can't imagine it isn't anything but him doing his security research in a way that is being misinterpreted.
Yeah.
That said, lots of good people make stupid mistakes. So it's, it's never impossible that a good person has done something wrong like that. But the chances are low because security researchers, particularly on the internet, particularly engaging things like investigating malware and dipping into the dark web to make contacts and acquire code samples, are like undercover cops in a drug sting.
Yeah.
They're going to talk with people and do things that if you didn't know they were a cop would make you highly suspicious of them because they have to in order to do their job. The difference is security research isn't deputized by the government. He's not a law enforcement. So you have fewer protections. That said, I'm not saying, undercover cops can go and break the law in the pursuit of their investigations. There are laws against entrapment and things like that. But it is riskier for a security researcher to engage in this habit because, let's say he acquires some code and then someone wants it back and there's a misunderstanding. He's like, fine, just give me the Bitcoins back and I'll give you the code. And that's the part that is in this chat log. I'm, again, not saying that is what it was happening. I'm just putting a scenario out there. So
right.
It will be very interesting to see what evidence they actually bring to light here. And,
there's also a very interesting opinion piece in the Washington Post. And this is not at all necessarily, well, I mean, it is related to Marcus Hutchins because that's what the opinion piece is about. But were he to have done it intentionally, is it a crime to create and sell malware that you don't use?
Right. And the law is a little bit fuzzy on that.
It's a little fuzzy.
Yeah. It's not necessarily against the law to create code. It's certainly not against the law to sell code. I don't know that the law says that it's against the law to sell code with the intent to harm, but then you'd have to prove intent. So that's another aspect of this whole situation to keep an eye on because it could be precedent setting.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that there are companies that sell code to do things like track people's, essentially like cell phone trackers that you can put on people's phone and monitor their phone. Reply All had an entire episode about this recently. Yeah. Those companies are legitimate companies that are not breaking the law. They're selling software that could potentially be used in a way that is law breaking, if you understand what I mean. So
absolutely.
It's a very similar in my mind kind of situation.
That's part of this that I hadn't even thought of before. And granted, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is wide and loose and can be applied to almost anything. But what if he, in trying to acquire malware samples, agrees to give some innocuous code that is on its own not harmful to a person that's going to use it to develop a Trojan in order to, he's like, well, this is code that isn't harmful. I'll give it to you in exchange for the sample of the harmful code. And then that person goes and takes that innocuous code, puts it in the Trojan, which has got other code that is harmful. Right? Because there's parts of code that's just like, hey, check network systems. I mean, checking network systems is against the law. You need it to happen. You need it to do stuff. So that's another scenario that, again, I'm not saying it is what happened, but it could have played out that way.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll learn more in the coming weeks.
Yeah. But thanks for sharing your perspective on that from somebody who's directly talked with him. Appreciate that.
He's a real sweet guy.
Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and also in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Real quickly, the amateur traveler is here to discuss a potential pilot shortage and a prediction for how to deal with it.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. So an interesting article on CNN Money that was a study that came from Boeing talking about the number of new pilots we will need, especially in the United States, but all around the world, to supply the number of commercial airline pilots we'll need because of the increasing demand in air travel. Now, combined with that, in the U.S., there's quite a lot of pilots who will be turning 65 by the year 2021, which is a mandatory retirement age. What Boeing says is they think they're now going to need to train something like 87 new pilots every day to meet the need. We're already seeing some airlines that are cutting back on flights because they can't find enough pilots. How does this relate to technology? This is my prediction. Don't be too surprised if you're going to start to hear discussions about making the co-pilot optional and replacing the co-pilot with a drone pilot who is keeping an eye on that aircraft and some other aircraft as well. It's just a prediction, but technology is going to be one of the things they're going to use to address a shortage of pilots. I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
That is intriguing, Chris. And he says discussion, not necessarily they're going to be doing this. Also, I don't know if Rachel Metz is listening, but here's another 2021 prediction, like we talked about when she was on the show a while back. So thank you, Chris, for that. Let's get to our messages of the day, starting, Veronica, with somebody who has a recommendation.
Yes, indeed. Hey, Tom, not sure if you're still doing picks of the day, but I have one for you. I'm so comfy sitting in my gaming chair in front of my ergonomically correct monitor at my desk that I've been ignoring my games on consoles and letting them collect dust. But now I've gotten really into using my Xbox One and PS4's game streaming abilities, and I'm getting through my backlog of games. The PS4, did you just hear me burp? I'm so sorry. The PS4 has the Remote Play app on a variety of PCs, and Xbox One has the Xbox app on Windows 10. By using these apps and connecting a supported controller, you can play your PS4 or Xbox One games on your PC with no noticeable lag. Note that the PS4 controller shockingly works with Microsoft's game streaming in my experience. The video quality of both is really good on a wired LAN for such low-powered consoles. The PS4 Pro provides a better quality experience than the other models, but aside from a little artifacting and dense foliage on the launch, PS4 and the occasional momentary hiccup on Xbox One S, I can't fault the experience. If you can't park your butt in front of your TV for whatever reason, give these options a go to play your console games. This is from Nick.
Yeah, I like this not only because he writes up a good, from the user perspective recommendation, but he's cross-platform. He's like, yeah, I'm using it both, and there's good things about both of them. So thank you, Nick. Finally, Bob Davis wrote in asking the question, what happens to people who need organ donations if self-driving cars cause road fatalities to drop precipitously? The U.S. government's Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, estimates that one person can donate up to 8 life-saving organs. Bob uses a more conservative estimate of 2.5 to 6, and organ donors generally don't, and points out that organ donors generally have to be a victim of traumatic death, not disease. So the majority of organ donations do come from auto accidents. Bob says if you do the math, 10,000 donators eliminated times 2.5 to 6 organ recipients is 25 to 60,000 lives, not counting the life improvement transplants that could add another 20,000 plus lives. Doesn't seem like a very good trade, does it? Okay, well, the National Safety Council estimates that 40,000 people died in motor vehicle accidents in 2016. Now, we're going to assume that not every single one of them could have donated an organ. And in fact, not all of them did. In 2016, according to the HRSA, there were 9,971 deceased organ donors. Probably not all of them were from auto accidents, but let's assume the majority were. In the U.S., the HRSA also says 54% of adults who support organ donation are signed up to be donors. So one solution to this is to say, hey, we need to get people who believe in organ donation to authorize organ donation. That could help make up the gap. But the other one's is a tougher question, Veronica. We obviously want to stop people from dying in traffic accidents, but What do we do about people who now have a long enough wait for organ transplants? It could get longer in that case.
We got to grow them.
We got to print them.
We got to print them. We got to grow them.
Yeah. Wait. My mind went to the 3D printing of organs, which is not
and I went
there
to
yet.
growing organs.
So, there's two different approaches there.
Yeah.
And this is the motivation we need. I mean, there's plenty of people motivated to research this, but this is a little boost. Like, hey, you guys, we might need this pretty soon. If by 2021, when everything else happens, we get those self-driving cars in large numbers.
Yeah, that's something I've never thought about before. That's fascinating.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to not save lives on the road. I don't want to say, well, we can't have self-driving cars because we need those organs. But I also agree that Bob's pointing out a unintended side effect of that.
Yeah, like I said, never would have occurred to me, but that is pretty upsetting.
Yeah. Well, go to organdonor.gov if you want more stats about this. And if you haven't done it yet, it's usually done through your driver's license here in the U.S. Sign up to be an organ donor. I am myself.
As am I.
And I encourage you to do so as well. Thank you, organ donor Veronica Belmont, for joining us today. I know you weren't feeling well. I appreciate you sticking with it. Of course, IRLpodcast.org, you can see Veronica's interview with Marcus Hutchins, as well as lots of other cool stuff. Well, I guess you could listen. You would only see the waveforms. You're right. But you could listen to it. What else you got going on?
Yeah, we have episode 4 actually came out today, the care and feeding of your trolls. Pretty personal episode for me, so please check it out. And the episode before that, number 3, is the one that we had Marcus on previously. So IRLpodcast.org is where it's at.
And thanks to everybody who gives a little value back for the value they get from this show. Our goal is always to get one more patron than last month. Every time the month begins, we drop down below that because there's always, people whose cards are canceled or people who finally realize, you know what, I need to save a little money. But we usually make it up by the end of the month. So right now, we're negative 14 patrons over July. If you've been thinking about supporting us, now's the time. It only takes $1 a month, and you get an exclusive RSS feed with some extra content in there at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. Our website is dailytechnewsshow.com, and we'll be back tomorrow with Monsieur Patrick Beja. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show. What should we call it?
18 cores.
Just 18 cores? That's it?
There's also Patrick
18 cores! Oh, with 3 exclamation points, though. I see. Okay.
Netflix opens a can of Kick-Ass.
That's pretty clever, yeah.
Intel focuses on their core demographic.
That's clever, too. Dark Redeemer's killing it today.
I know. A Far Cry from WannaCry.
Mm-hmm.
Intel works the core. Encores. Do you want more?
Like Encore, yeah.
Kingsman and Statesman and Flixman. Oh, my. I like Netflix opens a can of... I'm sorry. That's the best.
That's really good, yeah. I'm just kind of paging through these other ones.
Real good. Perchance to dream of improved sleep.
Veronica says, leave Marcus alone.
So don't put him in the title? Veronica says
no, that's a title submission that I just read.
Sorry, I just got to it. The thing keeps bumping around. Marcus Hutchins can't hack it. Amazon plays the Bluss.
Veronica burped.
The Blues. Blue in the face, blue.
2 men and Veronica talk about press pumps.
To Roger, a breast pump is just like a VR headset. Does limit your movement. 2021 drones will fly planes.
Netflix opens a can of Kick-Ass. Pretty good.
Yeah.
AI is woke.
I think we tried that one 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. Intel focuses on their core demographic is pretty good too. All right. I'm still levelating, so y'all can vote at showbot.tv if you're watching live and help us figure it out. We take your votes seriously. It's not a democracy. We don't just pick the one that gets the most votes, but it definitely helps us break ties and be inspired. So please vote.
What's a democracy? It's just limited.
Yeah, it's a representative. It's a constitutional monarchy.
Oh no, it's just because Serafina just has her kid. I was thinking the rest was like, man, that's a lot of milk you got.
Well, it's one of those categories that it just kind of, I mean, I'm sure there's been some progress in it, but you know, if you read this TechCrunch article, the ones that came out in the 80s are not that different than the ones out now. There hasn't been a lot of innovation there.
The one thing I wonder is how quickly can you get those out of the device that go in your bra, so you can like put them in a fridge, so they keep.
Oh yeah, that's a fair point. You'll want to find out what the storage and transportation system is. Yeah.
Although if they can combine it with a kind of a refrigerated Camelback.
Well, you could probably do that.
Zzz, goes in the back.
I mean, that's kind of a constant across all of the options, though, is how that's
Camelback.
No, the how fast you can get it out and put it in the fridge, or freeze it. All right, I'm getting close to exporting. What are we picking?
Netflix opened a can of kick ass.
Wow, you're super excited about it.
Sorry. It was a long night and an early morning.
Oh, I was muted this whole time.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were muted on purpose.
Oh, no.
What did we miss?
I don't know. I was just saying I like the whoop-ass.
The whoop-ass? Okay.
Kick-ass one.
Yep.
All right, but I should go, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go rest if you can.
I got to work.
I know.
But I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Thanks.
All right. Feel better.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm putting you in the credits since you piped in.
I popped in.
As the only person who actually has at least indirect experience with the pumps.
Oh, no, I had direct experience. Those things are loud.
You haven't pumped is what I mean.
I was not pumped.
You are
correct.
what I'm talking about.
We were trying to figure it out one night. It's like, what do these tubes do? So this is the thing about breast pumps, at least in my circles, is they're just passed around. Because number one, they're super expensive.
Yeah.
Two, you don't use them very long, right? You're not keeping 4 years of breast milk storage.
Right. Well, the TechCrunch article said that insurance covers them.
Some of them cover up to a point.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like if you want that new $999 Naya one, you're probably not going to get that covered.
You can get one and they'll cover it. The thing is you get one. And for most people, they typically get two because if they're at work, depending how they set up those, because you need to pump, you need to be basically in a position to pump, right? And if most of your day is at the office, that's where you're going to need to pump.
Yeah, because I think that's the hardest thing for people who've never done this to realize is it's not like, oh, I can just do it at night when I get home. Like it has to be done regularly on a schedule that you can't delay.
No, you need to get it going because the whole process is to ensure that you're constantly creating milk. Right? You can't do it on the like, oh, I think this is a good time. Everything stops. Like, no. You have to do it when you have to do it.
Yeah. We got some good response from people to the discussion on Friday about teens and smartphones. I didn't include a lot of it in here today, mostly because of time. But people were very happy that Len and you weighed in. I mean, I know you don't have a teen, but Len does, and you know, it's a. I don't think there's. The feeling I get is that a lot of people are like, well, there could be a lot of alternative reasons for the things cited in her article, which she admits to in her article. And also, I don't think anybody's really figured out the way to do it. Yeah. You know, parents are just making their best calls. Well, and it varies by child too.
Depends on their personality, you know. Kids that, and I assume this is totally assumption on my part, that tend to be a little more that tend to be more shy might be more drawn to a phone than someone who's just super gregarious and needs to talk to everyone.
Yeah. You know, and I think it was Kim, the Texas teacher, who pointed out, like, sure, smartphones might be causing kids to not leave their houses often, but she's like, prove to me it's not helicopter parents who are just making it difficult for their kids to go hang out with other kids. I mean, that's a point to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I in the article, at least when I read it, I got more of a feeling that, at least the way I understood it, was more of an effect than a direct cause. Like this was. Yeah. She's saying there's more smartphone use. There's these other things that are changing, and you can see where smartphones might impact some of them in some ways. But I thought she did a good job of saying, I'm not saying definitively they are, but it's something to start thinking about. I didn't get that sense that she was blaming smartphones, but there was a strong correlation. And
and so it's worth paying attention to.
Well, not just strong research into understanding what these connections are, and if there's something really, concerning that people should be thinking about.
No, that's how science is supposed to work. You see these correlations and you make some hypotheses about what might be causing them, and then you study it to see if your hypothesis is correct. So she's just putting out a hypothesis in the Atlantic article. I do think it's funny to think back at a time before cell phones, because even myself and my older sister, when we were like, oh, make sure you have your phone on you or else I won't be able to find you. It's like, well, we used to be able to find each other. How'd we do it? Just
I remember when one of my dad's waitresses used to send her kid to school with a pager. So if there was ever an emergency, she would page him and he would call her back.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't go to school with a pager or a cell phone or anything. My parents just knew, like, okay, well, if I'll expect you home within a certain time range, and if you're not, call me and let me know why. Otherwise, I'm going to get worried.
Did you have a key around your neck? Were you a latchkey kid? I was a latchkey kid.
I was not a latchkey kid.
Let myself in, made my sandwich, watched my TV, did my homework.
I think I got a key in high school, maybe, but
I got a key in junior high. All right, you're coming home. Here's the key. Don't lose the key.
I still remember what it looked like.
I lost my key twice. That's the worst. I can see why parents put the key around the neck.
Oh, they didn't actually put it around your neck?
No, they gave me like a little key fob.
There's their first mistake. Maybe I got mine in junior high. Because the thing was, in junior high, my mom started working more. She'd worked a little bit before that, but she started working more often, and I was doing more after school stuff. So it wasn't like I just walked home from school. I mean, I lived walking distance from all my schools too, which made a difference. They didn't have to come pick me up. Nobody did.
Yeah, I was walked. I lived close enough. Even if I had to take the bus. I took the bus because it was my school was literally on a hill, so it was easier to take the bus up.
Well, that was the worst thing about it. Junior high, which was just 7th and 8th grade in Greenville, was a longish walk up a hill, but I was just too close to take a bus. They were like, no, we're not busing those people. So I'd always whine, and I couldn't drive, right? Because I'm still underage. I always whine for them to take me to, like, can you just drive me?
No, I hated it because I had to get up like an hour and a half early and then wait for the bus, and the bus was crowded.
Yeah.
And then I still have to walk the rest of the way up, which is up the other rest of the hill. Just a pain in the ass.
I never took a bus to school. I took buses to like sporting events and stuff like that, but never rode the bus to school anymore. I never had that iconic movie moment where, the bully won't let you sit in the seat where you want to or whatever.
I mean, there was a couple of years my parents didn't live at home. They were running the restaurant Modesto, so my sister and I were still, and we just lived by ourselves.
Oh, that's the key.
Well, I had the key way before then, but my father would check in every 2 weeks. It's like, hey, what's up? leave some cash so we could buy groceries.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 11, 12.
Oh.
So I learned how to cook.
Yeah, I would come home and make dinner for my brother, but that was when I was in high school. I was a little older than that.
I made a lot of eggs.
Eggs are easy.
Eggs are easy, and then what was the other?
I made eggs in coffee mugs in the microwave. My mom got a microwave for Christmas in like 1982, I think, or 81.
It was either that, cold cut sandwiches, or lots of Chinese food. But no rice, because we can make rice at home.
Oh, we didn't have. I mean, we had one pizza place that delivered. I think they delivered. Pizza Hut delivered, but I can't. But they weren't always there. I think they didn't come along until. Oh well, they must have come along in 1980 because I remember. Or no, probably like 82, because the arcade was opening up where the Pizza Hut would eventually go when Ronald Reagan came in the 1980 election campaign.
I kid you not. I don't think I would let my daughter go to the places I did when I was like in junior high.
And I worked delivering pizzas for Pizza Hut, but yeah.
I was just all over the city. Take the bus, take the train.
Mm-hmm.
Just end up on the other side of the city.
It was a different time, Roger.
That was when there was all the stranger danger and all the kids were getting picked up from school. Because there was one kid, not at my Catholic school, but at one of the neighboring parishes. For his name, something Collins, but they never found him.
Wow.
And they thought he was abducted because he was running around at school for his mother to pick him up, and his mother never was like, "Where did he go? Can't find him."
That's a horrible story.
So, and it was a time there was a lot of vans around that were handing out stuff to kids. So back in San Francisco, there's 106.1 KMEL. The Camel, the radio station. They used to have a guy parked like 2 blocks away from the school in a white van giving out KMEL bumper stickers, and all the kids would come around trying to get free bumper stickers. It was
hence the stereotype of don't take free things from people in vans.
It was just a white. There was nothing on the side.
You wouldn't do it anymore.
I think there was a bumper sticker on the bumper of the van that said KMEL, but there's
one of the ones they were giving out. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was nothing that said KBL radio station. It was just a white van.
Yeah.
And now I think about it, it's like, that's probably the smartest thing to do.
Schnago says, growing up, I assumed pizza delivery was just something that happened in TV land because we lived out in the country. Same here. I mean, we didn't even live in the country, but we didn't have pizza delivery until I was, older. The idea that you could actually have a pizza delivered to your house was absent for most of my childhood too.
We did that once or twice, but I found out that I didn't like delivery pizza. It was just
gross. We didn't have any delivery options at all. Nothing.
Well, being in San Francisco has the fortunate consequence of good food on the way home, so I could just pick up something. Some like a little snot.
There were no restaurants on the way home from my schools. There was Al's Diner, which was Reband's before it was Al's. That was next to the high school, but that wasn't on the way back from junior high or elementary.
No, we had a bunch of.
I guess they did to go. My dad did to go from Reband's.
We did a lot of Chinese takeout. One, because we're Chinese, but two, it's cheap.
Captain Jack wants to know when Domino's showed up in Greenville. Not while I was living there. I guess there was a Domino's in Greenville for a while after I moved away. There's a Taco Bell there too. We didn't have that when I was growing up. We didn't get McDonald's until my sister was in high school.
There was no Taco Bell anywhere near me up until high school. Yeah. And I was like, why is there no Taco Bell? At that point, I lived in another completely different city, so it didn't matter. And even then, I still kept walking my ass to school. And it was like 5 times farther away.
Yeah, but it was in the country, so there's less wind resistance.
No, it was in the suburbs. It was there were tumbleweeds in my town. Like, you could stop at a red light and a tumbleweed would blow by.
Oh, man. Silverblade says, my old house was one street outside of the delivery range of a pizza place, and they refused to deliver to us. I would be so tempted to just have them deliver it to the next street over and then go wait for them on that street. Just hang out.
I think there was a period when I didn't order takeout pizza because of the whole 30 minutes thing. Like people, like delivery drivers were driving too fast and reckless, and they're causing accidents.
Yeah, we never had that.
That was
we only had Pizza Hut, and they didn't have the 30-minute guarantee. So
I was like, I don't want to order it. Maybe someone would get hurt. So I just go there and pick it up.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our broadcast day. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with Patrick Beja tomorrow. If you are a supporter of the Patreon at the co-executive producer level, we're going to do our monthly roundtable tomorrow, but Patrick had an idea about flipping the tables. He's going to interview me on that, and that'll go into the Patreon feed. So check that out tomorrow. See you then.
Bye.